Hello and welcome, Exiles, to my thoughts on the spiraling conspiracy, the Raven Righteous Fire, or as I like to call it, the Righteous Bait. I believe this skill is going to be effectively dead on arrival for quite a few reasons. I got into a debate with my chat over it, and I'm going to go over my thoughts on why I think this skill is just going to be bad. And you're welcome to leave your comments on why you think I'm stupid and you think it's going to be good, because that's something fun to do in the 3 weeks prior to the league actually launching. This skill is a minion tag skill, which generates ravens, and your AoE goes up and your damage goes up with those ravens over time as you kill enemies, as well as it generates them passively when being near a unique enemy, like they're showcasing here. And then it has a command skill, the mirror images you see pop up that shoot ravens that hit the enemy. And it's in a weird situation because it is not only tied to a staff, it is a split skill where one part of it does hit based damage, the other does dots. And then not only that, it splits its damage between Fizz and Chaos. And this creates a number of issues for how you can scale it, which is part of the big reason why I think this skill is doomed for failure. I made a short list of opportunity cost for the issues I see with this build, because when it comes to making a skill do damage in this game, the biggest important factor is, number one, it has some good baseline, but on top of that, it has multiple venues, multiple vectors where you can scale the ability to do more damage. For example, if I have a skill where I do 10 damage per second, and that's my baseline, but then I go get 50% attack speed, and I hit 50% more, I'm going to deal effectively 50% more damage. That is a scaling vector that I have access to. The biggest issue I see with this skill is it has no scaling vectors. For example, you can't scale it with attack or cast speed. It's a dot skill, and then the command skill has a set hit rate. So you can't scale it with speed modifiers like attack or cast speed. It doesn't really have a good scenario where you can invest into a giga exposure, a bunch of minus res, because all you have is despair in terms of minus chaos res. You don't have an exposure because it's a chaos skill, but it's not just chaos, it does chaos fizz hybrid. So your res attack is split into two different directions, which makes it half as effective. And so you also have no real good multiplier there. You then have the situation where you're required to use a two-hand unique weapon, which kills your biggest gear piece for damage, which is having a scepter for a minion build, for example. Then next up after that, it is tagged as a minion skill, so it doesn't work with a lot of spell things. For example, a lot of times spell builds can use a sigil in their offhand where they plop it down right before fighting a boss, and it gives them a nice 60% more multiplier. You don't have that option. This is also an issue when it comes to, for example, spell builds would have a rune that can give plus levels, which I have listed here. I don't think there's one for minions. I think there's only one +1 rune for a spell skill, for example, like Essence Drain would use a +1 all rune. Another example is crit scaling only works on half the skill because, as I said earlier, this skill is not just a dot skill, it's a hit skill with the command. So, when you look at this thing on the page, Spiraling Conspiracy says, hey, this is a dot skill, but then the commands part of it does a hit based portion. So, let's say you want to invest into a bunch of crit scaling as another scaling vector. That doesn't work on the baseline dot, which means you've split your investment into two different things going two different directions, where you need the dot to do decent damage to clear, because this is on Mad Flight's on a cooldown, and you can't, all of a sudden your clear is going to suck a lot more if you're trying to invest in a crit to make the Mad Flight do better damage. So it's splitting up your investment because the skill has two very different portions tied to it. Next up, it's going to have a slow build time for bossing. For example, this command skill, one, it has a 10-second cooldown. So if the boss moves out of it, guess what? You just lost all your damage up time every time the boss moves out of it, because you set it down and you have a big cooldown attached to it. But not only that, the Spiraling Conspiracy, for it to generate birds, it only generates them one every second, a little bit slower than that, when you're near a rare or unique enemy. And the footage they showcased here, they showcased a boss that spawns a bunch of ads. Every time you kill one of those ads, they have one power that's generating a raven. Most unique bosses don't just generate you ads. This is a best case scenario where a lot of unique bosses do not have extra ads. You're not going to be generating the ravens as quickly because you're just going to wait for that 10-second timer to generate those birds, to get the AoE to be bigger, to get your AoE or your dot damage to be better. And you're going to have this built-in slow ramp time that is tied to it. Another thing you're going to have is, again, because this skill is split between fizz damage and chaos damage, if you want to go and, let's say, invest into Wither as a multiplier, it's half as efficient. So you're going to spend this time to support Wither, but it only works on like half the portion of your damage, which makes it not as great to feeling to invest into, but you're still going to want to invest into it because you don't have many vectors to work with anyways. Another huge issue I see with this is because it's tied to an item, your six link is gated behind a level 20 drop item. If you look, for example, at skills tied to items, you'll notice the level 20 versions of the items are much rarer than the level 19 or the level 18 version. Therefore, your six link is gated behind a very expensive purchase because it's going to be way rarer, therefore way more limited, therefore way more expensive. On top of that, this item is dropping from the Delirium Simulacrum progression. Simulacrum right now in PoE2 is literally one of the hardest things in the game, in my opinion, for builds to be able to do because simulacrums are a ton of like more tanky enemies all barraging you at once. It's less like you can play around it with skill. You more need a build that can brute force tank the damage. So this is going to be coming on market a lot slower than like a random unique drop would be because you have to get people that progress their character to the power level to take on Simulacrum to then beat Tang Mazu to then be able to drop the staff. So by the time this thing's coming on the market, it will require some fairly good characters to do that. And I'm not sure a build that was built around this staff could complete a simulacrum. It's a weird situation where the drop is gated behind content that the drop could not beat itself, type of thing, is what I worry is the situation. So limited in terms of cost, and then your six link is also gated by it being a much rarer drop. So you stack all these things together and you're left with what are my scaling vectors? It's gem levels and percent damage, and that's about it. This prevents a very big issue where your character has to have a extremely strong baseline for it to be very good late game because you are working with such a limited amount of multipliers. When you're looking at the gem levels, for example, number one, tying it to an item, you can't get a +1 corruption like you can with regular skills. You can't get plus levels from your weapon because it's tied to a unique staff. You can't get a +1 level rune, which I already went over. You can't get a prism jewel that gives you plus levels on it. So your late game scaling, it doesn't have a lot of these extra levels. What I could think of to give you plus levels are you can get +2 minion on helmet, you can get +3 on amulet, which can sanctify to 4, which is a very expensive min maxy thing that won't be something you can do for a very long time. And then maybe you get +1 from the notable that says +1 chaos skills on the tree, and that's about it. Like +6 levels is the amount of gem levels you have access to. Ec- of course, they have the ability to limit these as well. Like if they are going to nerf plus levels, +3 amulet might become +2 at the top end. We don't know what exactly that looks like, how much they're going to hit plus levels, but this is your scaling options are so limited. In order for this skill to be good, GGG would have to make its baseline damage extremely high because your late game multipliers are you have two vectors and that's it, and it's very limited. Obviously, you have a little bit of half efficient despair, half efficient wither, but that's a very awkward place to be. On top of these limited things, the showcase they have here, where they showcase killing this Miller, you're looking at a situation where let's assume this skill has zero supports, which is what I'm assuming they showcase, and 0% damage scaling. What they showcased here for this kill time, for this basically like T1 map boss with 200k, is a pretty slow kill time. Let's try to give you an example of when this fight starts. The fight starts, they already waited for the ramp to be up to 20k. So I don't know how much they were standing here to get the 20k initially, but they started the clip part way into the fight, which if you ever watch videos of people showcasing the character and they start the showcase of the kill part way in, that means they skipped the ramp time, they skipped the setup. This obviously I don't think GG's like necessarily trying to be misdirecting with this, but the point is there might have been some ramp time because the Ravens take 1 second to gather, and so there's some build up time that's required there. They start with 10% of the HP gone. It starts at 338, and let's see how long does it take to kill essentially about a 200k HP boss, which it just died around the 104 mark. So it's around a 20-second kill time for a like tier 1 map level boss. This is like one of the first this is like the HP level of the bosses you first run into on T1 maps. And keep in mind, this is a staff that you would be getting from defeating Tangmazo, doing a simulacrum. You do very hard content to get a staff that takes 20 seconds to kill a T1 boss with assuming no percent damage scaling, no links. That baseline I don't think is a good starting baseline when your vectors to scale are just gem levels and percent damage, which I might be missing something huge here in terms of a vector that I haven't thought of. Maybe you're a genius and you have thought of, and you can leave a comment down below why I'm an idiot. And there's a really good damage thing that will make this damage not bad. But I just think at baseline, it's in a very horrific situation. So that is kind of my points on the limitations on this thing. Um, we'll see what GGG does in terms of if they end up wanting to give it a good baseline damage. But I predict with this situation that this skill is going to be dead on arrival, and I think it's going to instantly move into a Death's Oath situation. For those of you who don't know PoE1, Death's Oath is an item with a Chaos Dot skill tied to the chest piece, and it does a set damage over time, and it is horrific damage scaling. Every single time you see a person play a Death's Oath build, you look under the hood, they're doing damage with a different single target because Death's Oath can't do single target, and they're clear as Profane Bloom. And quite frankly, if they just swap the chest piece out for a rare chest piece, their character would get just a lot stronger. And I'm worried that this staff on arrival is going to be into one of those situations where, in order to make this do damage, you are going to have to support a different thing doing damage. And ultimately, you would just be a better build if you weren't using the staff. That is my concern. Now, we're going to do a little bit of a game here. All the people that disagree with the things I'm saying or reasons I'm pointing out why I think this is going to be a bad item, go ahead and leave your comment on why you think I'm wrong. And we're gonna check back 10 days after the league launch, and I'm gonna make a video where I'll either say, hey, all of you guys were right, I was wrong, or I'm gonna make a video putting you on blast for disagreeing with my very sound logic here, which, you know, maybe there's some flaws with my logic, maybe there isn't. You can make up your own mind on that and leave a comment on it. But I am concerned that this skill is going to go instantly into the dumpster, which I think is kind of a bummer. I think like a skill like this is very cool. It's got great visuals, it's got great thematics, but I'm just worried that its baseline, because it's tied to a staff, basically kills its scaling potential. Essentially, it's mainly due to being tied to a staff, but there's other issues like the skill being split between a weird hit-based situation and a dot-based portion. It makes it awkward to invest into. Just to give like some examples real quick here, I'm going to pull up, this is Dead Rabbit's Essence Drain guy. When you're like looking at supporting a skill like Essence Drain, which is a dot skill, what does he use? He used Zenith and he used Swift Affliction. If I wanted to put Swift Affliction on my dot minion skill, well, guess what? Swift Affliction doesn't work on the hit-based portion. So that's not a great support gem to use. Zenith, which is a very generic 30% more multiplier, it's dependent on being supported with a spell, which I'm not sure would work with the minion tag skill, which wouldn't make it a great option. And like you're looking at Essence Drain, and his third best damage link apparently is Chaos Mastery for +1. Like this is the level of desperation when it comes to gem links, and this is a skill that's just Chaos Dot, not a skill that's a minion dot hybrid hit based weird situation. You're going to run into issues where even your gem links you go for are going to feel like, okay, well, this is only going to work for one of the two portions of this skill. So either my single target, which is the mad flight skill, either that's going to get cooked a bit, or my clear, which is this dot aura, is going to get cooked because I'm not supporting it. And then you end up in a situation where maybe you're gem swapping in the middle of bosses. It's got a whole lot of awkwardness tied to it, which I think are just going to, I think that's why it's going to be dead on arrival. You can tell me you disagree or what you think is wrong with this reasoning. I'm always bummed out when I see things that are, in all honesty, like the skill looks cool. Visually, thematically, it is cool. But I think it's just going to be bad on arrival. And I think that's a bummer when you have something that's this thematically cool, this cool of an idea. So I'm hoping I'm wrong. I'm hoping GGG maybe sees this video and goes and looks at the numbers and says, okay, this baseline scaling isn't going to work. Maybe we should give it a little bit more. We'll see what ends up happening. But yeah, that was my debate I had with my chat about this skill and why I think it's bait. You can disagree with it. And anyways, we still got freaking 2 weeks to go until patch notes. It's going to be a long time. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. As always, thanks for watching, Exiles. Take care and peace out. Have a good one.